So a while back I made a review talking about Final Fantasy VII. As mentioned in the video, I played it, absolutely loved it, but was left a little empty after playing it. Don't get me wrong, it was an incredible game, probably one of my favorites of all time, but it just kinda ended. I really wanted more out of the game, but there was really no other option. No sequel, no spin-offs, there were a few movies, but those were terrible. But in terms of actual games that had more content, there was nothing. That wasn't until 2005 when an HD remake of the game was finally announced. Fans were so excited. People have wanted this for years, and it was just a tech demo, not the full game. Man. But then, after another decade of waiting, in 2015, an HD remake of the game was finally announced. Fans were so excited. People have wanted this for years, and then it took 5 years to come out. Well, it looks like it took them 15 years to make a game that was already out. But after the excruciating wait, was the game worth it? Kinda. Early March of this year, Sony had a PlayStation Direct where they announced a few games, but also announced that the Final Fantasy VII Remake would be coming to PS Plus for free. I beat the original FF7 a few weeks before that announcement and had absolutely loved it, but seeing the remake coming out for free made me realize I had to play that game. I didn't own a PlayStation. At that time, I was basically strictly a Nintendo user. I had a few other consoles like a PS2 and Xbox 360, but I really only used my Switch and Wii U. So I decided that I was going to get a PS5 just so I could play this one game. It wasn't going to be easy. I've heard stories of people spending countless hours a day just refreshing a page to try and get one, so I had to prepare myself for the impossible. I got it on my first try. Yeah, so I was in school, then I pulled my Chromebook up to check Amazon. I looked at the PlayStation 5, refreshed the page twice, and somehow got it. But my origin story doesn't matter anymore, because a few days ago, I managed to finish the game. This is the official Final Fantasy VII Remake review. The original Final Fantasy VII's gameplay never really appealed to me. The combat was this weird version of turn-based, which I never really liked. The rooms you would walk in would be 2D images and it would be hard to see where to go. The materia system was really complicated, at least to me, the first time around. And of course, the godforsaken random encounters. But while the original game's gameplay was never the greatest, the remake, on the other hand, still isn't great, but it's a step in the right direction. First, let's talk about the biggest thing this game fixed. No random encounters, thank God! In this game, instead of sticking with the turn-based combat, it uses this action-based combat, which is much better. But said action-based combat, the game doesn't really do it well. You pretty much have 3 attacks: a normal attack, a special attack that you can use after hitting an enemy enough, and a magic spell that uses MP, or magic points. In the end, this game feels more hack and slash than action-based. I wish the combat was more like Miles Morales, where you can do different combos with the enemy, and not just have to press one button over and over again, but you know, not a game developer. Everything else about the combat is basically brought back in this game. Materia is back, but it feels much simpler this time around. You can still change what weapon each character has. I'd be worried if they didn't bring this back. But the remake did add one thing to the combat system. You can now upgrade your weapons. In the beginning of the game, there's a tutorial on how to do this, but then I forgot about it up until the last 5 hours of the game. But that's not the only thing the remake added to the gameplay. May I present to you filler content.
Is Marlene with you?
No.
Oh, okay.
In this game, there are tons of different side quests, minigames, and chapters that have nothing to do with the story. The side quests are always optional, so if you don't want to waste your time on them, you can just skip right past them. The minigames are sometimes optional, but even if they aren't, they're still manageable. And then we get to the useless chapters. May I present to you all the worst part of the entire game, Chapter 14. Oh my god, this is terrible. So this chapter revolves around everyone's favorite character, Don Cornero's mansion's bodyguard. Not only does this guy get an entire chapter all to himself, but it also takes place in the sewers. This is awful. I would want to talk more about how much the sewers suck major ass, but I'll get into that later. But yeah, this game has a ton of useless chapters that just serve as filler content just to give the game more hours. Just like the original, the remake's gameplay isn't the most entertaining thing out there. Again, it's not terrible, definitely a step up from the original, but nothing incredible. And Jesus Christ, these battles can be annoying. Oh my god, these enemies have so much goddamn health, it is ridiculous. each and every battle can take up to like 5 minutes to complete. They're so annoying, up to the point where it's almost as bad as getting a random encounter. In the start of the game, you're mowing down tons of enemies that just die in a couple hits, which makes the battles satisfying and fun to do. But then the rest of the game just has 2 or 3 enemies with tons of health, which isn't fun. But whatever, I'm no game designer. Now for the story. It's Final Fantasy VII, who would have guessed? Yeah, so here's the thing about Final Fantasy VII Remake. It isn't Final Fantasy VII Remake. Instead, it's the remake of the first 5 hours of Final Fantasy VII, hence all the filler content I previously mentioned. Some people were definitely annoyed with this, and I can definitely see where they're coming from. I mean, we waited 5 years for this game and they just gave us the first portion of it, but I kinda liked it. I mean, Square is obviously just doing this to stretch the game out longer than it has to be for more moolah. But the setting of Midgar is so expansive and just a fun environment to explore that I think it deserves its own game entirely. But oh my god, it should not have taken them 5 years to remake the first 5 hours of an asshole game. I have no idea why I'm talking about all this stuff in the story section of the video, but whatever, I guess I'll get on with that story. Let's make this quick. Oh yeah, and spoiler alert. Cloud is hired as a mercenary for the eco-terrorist group Avalanche. You meet characters Barrett, Jesse, and Wedge, and Biggs. In my review on the first game, I mentioned that Jesse, Wedge, and Biggs were minor characters that died after like 3 boxes of dialogue each. In this game, these 3 are major characters that have huge impacts on the story, because you know it's a 30-hour, 5-hour game. The game blows up a Shinra reactor because Barrett loves the planet. On your way back to Barrett's house, you run into a girl named Aerith who is being attacked by ghosts. We'll get to these guys later. You'll return to Barrett's house, which is also a bar owned by Tifa Lockhart. Now you and Barrett to go to blow up another reactor, but Tifa joins you guys this time. Cloud gets separated from the group and meets up with Aerith again. After attacked by Shinra, you and Aerith escape and go to her home. You meet Aerith's mom, but she doesn't like you, so you gotta go and never talk to Aerith again. You then continue to talk to Aerith again, and then you run into Tifa. She says she's on her way to Don Cornero's mansion to get some info on the Shinra, and now you gotta go save her. You dress up as a femboy and go to catfish Don Cornero to get information from him. He then drops you, Tifa, and Aerith into the sewers, and you have to get out. You run into Barrett, Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge again, who are all trying to stop the Shinra from dropping a plate on the section of the slums. You fail, and Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge all die, alongside a lot of people living in that sector. Aerith is kidnapped as well, so now you, Tifa, and Barrett have to go get her. Also, Wedge is still alive. You get into a Shinra building, find Aerith, and meet Red 13. You then run into the president of Shinra, and then Barrett almost kills him, and then he almost kills Barrett, and then Sephiroth kills them both. Cloud fights the president's son, Rufus, and Barrett, Red 13, and Aerith fight this robot thing. You get out of there through a motorcycle chase scene, and then you end up in space. Cloud fights Sephiroth, and there's all these ghosts, and apparently this is a Kingdom Hearts plot. You beat Sephiroth, but you don't beat Sephiroth, and he's still out there. And the game ends. And Biggs is still alive too, how in the hell? So that was a brief summary of the story. I missed a few things, but that was basically the extent of it. Now for me to talk about the specific parts that I really liked. When the plate dropped on the sector and Barrett had this mental breakdown, that's probably my favorite moment in the entire game. The beginning of the game where Sephiroth shows up and everything's on fire like Cloud's hometown, that was really cool. And this final boss is good as hell. I mean, I don't know what's going on in that, but it's pretty good. That's all I remember. That's another thing about this game. It isn't that memorable. Well, it is memorable, but not in a good way. These areas are cool and all, but the whole game I just felt like I was following a map. I looked more at the on-game map than I did at the actual environment because there's so much stuff going on in such tiny areas, and they all blend in with each other. These goddamn sewers are the bane of my existence. Not only do they have normal enemies that just do more damage than most bosses in the game, but nobody wants to be playing in the stinky-ass sewers. I want to be in Midgar, I want to be in a Shinra building, I want to be literally anywhere else in these stupid, foggy, ugly, dumbass sewers. The story in this game relies closely on the original game, but not closely enough. You got all these stupid ghosts that are just kind of there for no reason. I don't want to fight these dumb ghosts, they have nothing to do with the story. At the end, they're revealed to be the protectors of fate or whatever, which is just stupid in a game about dinosaur tanks and suicide houses. Tifa Lockhart. Tifa Lockhart is a stupid character. In the original game, she's a super in-depth character with tons of backstory and has a cool personality in general. In the remake, Tifa is a crybaby bitch who won't shut the hell up. There are like 3 times where Tifa's like, this is terrible, there's no good conceivable reason we should be doing this. We have to stop. And then Barrett just says, nah, we gotta. And she's completely on board. And then we have Jesse, oh my god. I'm sure y'all have seen the donkey video. And he is completely right. Jesse is a stupid, annoying-ass character who should not be as annoying as they are. I just finished watching a video of people crying at Jesse's death in this game, and even if you forced it, I have no idea how anybody can make themselves cry at this. Every other character is pretty good though. Cloud is buried in a sea of anime grunts and being edgy, but he's a good, possibly even a great character. Scratch that, Cloud is actually my favorite character because of this scene.
I really wanted to believe we could.
Yeah. You owe me a pizza.
Barrett. Oh boy, Barrett. Barrett is such a good character. This guy has such a great backstory, can be deep at times, but at the same time be lighthearted and comedic. I love this guy. I already talked about Tifa, but who I haven't talked about was Aerith. At the start, she was turning out to be a Jessie situation, but eventually she ended up fine. Red 13 is here. Just kidding. For some reason, Red 13 is in the game, but he isn't even a playable character. You can tell Square wanted him to be a playable character. He has attacks, materia, and even a limit break built in, but you can't play as him. Probably because major characters and plot developments are being added up until the very last moments of this game. That's another thing about this game. Not only is it a 30-hour, 5-hour game, but it's a 30-hour, 5-hour intro sequence of a game. In the original game, all of the main characters were introduced within the first half of the game. But in the remake, Red 13 is introduced in the last 3 hours of the game, which would explain why he's not playable. I'm sure in the sequel he'll be an actual character, but in terms of things right now, it makes sense that he wasn't playable. Biggs and Wedge are two other characters who just became super important out of nowhere, like Jesse. These guys are okay, much better than Jesse, and apparently Square knows this because Jesse's the only major character that actually dies in the entire game. And then we got Sephiroth. What is there to say about this guy? He's cool. Just like in the original. The voice acting, I'd argue, was okay. Sure, you have moments like this.
We will not submit to intimidation or violence, but work together for peace and prosperity. That is how civilized people change the world!
That's right.
That is the Shinra Creed.
But the majority of the voice acting is pretty good. Until you get to the anime grunts. I feel like most of the anime grunts came from Jesse, which gives us a clear graph of when the game was okay to when the game was great. That was obviously a joke, but whenever Cloud gets separated from Jesse in the game, either I toned out the anime grunting, or Jesse really was the source. When she died, she took the grunting with her. Jesse was really the only bad voice actor I remember though. At the start, Aerith was kinda annoying, but then she got better as time went on. Even Tifa, who was a dumb, stupid, dumb character, had a really good voice actor. But then we get to Sephiroth. I don't know. It's not bad, but it doesn't really feel like it suits him. I don't know how to explain this, but come on guys, you know what I'm talking about. Oh my god, the music in this game is awesome! It's all the songs from the first game with all these big ass orchestras, and it makes the battle so cool and so awesome, and even the sound effects when you hit an enemy, it's so satisfying, make the fight cooler. And they fixed the biggest problem with the first game. There's finally multiple goddamn battle songs! So in my last video, I introduced the Fishometer. That was a massive fail, so instead of being different from other YouTubers, I'll just steal their rating systems instead. Plagued with filler content, annoying characters, battles that last too long, annoying boss fights, anime grunting, tons of side quests, and useless missions, I can't wait for the second part of this game. At the heart of this game, even with all its downsides, it's still Final Fantasy VII. It's still an amazing game, and it's still incredible seeing all these characters and graphics that don't look like ass. And oh my god, how have I not mentioned these games' graphics are incredible. It's super cool to see all these characters finally in 4K. So in the end, if you like Final Fantasy VII, you're gonna like the remake. Hell, maybe if you didn't even like the original or never played it, you're still gonna find some enjoyment out of it.
3 bangers. Just get 3 bangers.
Remember the terrible movie I talked about in the beginning? It's in the game. There's just a clip of the movie in the game.